Hello, everybody. You listening to J Movie Talk, episode 330, where I will be diving into the career of Val Kilmer, who recently passed away here on the 1st of April. And I just want to do an episode kind of just talking about, his career, movies that I am a fan of, and, just remembering the man and everything like that. So, getting into talking about him for the most part, if you are of a certain age like me, you know Val Kilmer for a lot of his films from the 80s, the 90s, and things like that. Now, if you are a little younger, you don't remember Val for the fact that he was in the original Top Gun, or why his performance in Top Gun Maverick meant so much more than just him being on the screen and everything. It meant a lot and everything. But I just want to go through and kind of talk about films from his career that I grew up watching, why I was a fan of his, and everything like that. So let's kind of go through his career, basically. So it's interesting. Even though I've been a fan of Val Kilmer's, I've actually never watched his first film, Top Secret, which came out in 1984, 2 years before I was born. Actually, I never seen it. I knew of it, but I never watched it, and for some reason, I never really had an interest in watching it. I don't know why. And everything, but yeah, I've never really watched Top Secret. Real Geniuses, which I have seen, but it's been a long time since I've watched Top Secret, so I've been planning to revisit it because I don't really remember too much about it, except for the ending where they're outside the house and they kind of just, everything's kind of going crazy and everything, and they just looking up at the amazement of what happened and everything. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I will be I'll be watching Top Secret for the first time, and I will be revisiting Real Geniuses as well. Now, the movie that pretty much really started to make him a star is Top Gun from 1986, the year I was born, and everything. And I've seen that movie a number of times and everything. Him, Tom Cruise, it is one of the movies of Val Kilmer's career to definitely check out. And you could see why he was who he was becoming as an actor. And everything, and the fact that as we kind of in hindsight, Iceman was right. He was right. Maverick was this maniac, loose cannon. Iceman was right. He wasn't really the villain. I mean, you can look at him as quote unquote the antagonist, but he really was not wrong for how he was going at Maverick, and kind of letting Maverick know, dude, you being too reckless. You need to relax out there. We are a team type of thing. But, in the end, they become friends. And I feel like there should be a story told in between the years of when Iceman, how he moves up the ranks. Because when we see him in Top Gun Maverick, he's Admiral at that point. It's well, he had an interesting career. He moved up the ranks and he became an admiral. But the fact that him and Maverick remain friends and everything, I feel like there should be a story told about that. Unfortunately, we won't get it with Val Kilmer in the role or anything. But I still believe that there could be a story told. I would like to have seen that. I doubt it's going to happen, but I would have liked to see a story being told about Iceman and Maverick and their friendship. And other, instances of where Maverick, pretty much still being this crazy pilot, and everything like that. So continuing on, we'll go to 1988 with Willow, which, okay, so Willow and Legend are two movies from the 80s that when I was a kid I used to get mixed up. I used to think that Legend was Willow and Willow was Legend, right? But I've seen Willow, and I was never really big into Willow. I think I was more into Legend. Ironically, Willow and Legend both, one stars Val Kilmer, the other stars Tom Cruise, right? But I know they did the revamped reboot series here a few years back with Warwick Davis returning as Willow, and I know a lot of people didn't really care for it as much. Even fans of the movie didn't really care for it as much, and everything. But yeah, Willow was, like I say, I know there are people who enjoy Willow a lot. I'm not gonna bash the movie and everything. I just know that when I did see it and realized that Willow was Willow and Willow was not Legend, I did not really, it wasn't like a favorite of mine, and everything. We'll go to 1991, where he stars as Jim Morrison in the biopic about the Doors, and this movie is probably the movie where people really looked at Val Kilmer as like, wait a minute, no, this dude is really talented, and you know, he really should be, you know, a top actor. And because look at what he's doing as Jim Morrison. And I've seen the Doors movie. It's an interesting movie, and I don't think they could have really told Jim Morrison's story any different than what they did, because he was an interesting guy and led an interesting life, and just how they navigate the story and everything like that. I feel like Val, he does a great job as Jim Morrison, and he should have been nominated for an Academy Award for this movie, because how he was talked about as far as his performance is very similar to how Jamie Foxx was talked about as far as his performance for his portrayal of Ray Charles, and in the sense that there are moments in the movie when Val is performing the songs of the Doors as Jim Morrison. Even the band members of the Doors, they could not tell when it was Val doing the actual singing and when it was the recordings of Jim singing. The fact that his own friends and bandmates could not tell the difference said a lot about how much Val put into that performance. And if you've never seen the Doors, I highly recommend watching it just to see Val's performance in that film and everything. Next in 92 we get Thunderheart, which I remember Thunderheart to a degree. I haven't seen it in a really long time. I know it's the fact that you have him and Sam Shepard together, and they're like FBI agents investigating a crime revolving around Native Americans, and the fact that Val Kilmer's character is supposed to be like half Native American and everything. It's not a movie that I revisited a lot and everything, but it has a great cast though. Besides Val Kilmer, you have Sam Shepard, you got Graham Greene, Fred Ward is also in it and everything. It's one of those movies, like I say, if you've seen it, you've seen it. If you're not, it's like, it's one of those films in people's careers where, like, it's a good movie, but it kind of gets lost and sometimes forgotten in the shuffle of their careers. Next in 93, he shows up in True Romance as the mentor, Elvis, but he's credited as Mentor. And even though you don't see Val's face in the, I think it's 2 scenes that he shows up in as the mentor, it's just the fact that this performance and the way it is played as if he's basically Clarence's conscience and everything, and the fact that it is Elvis, because Clarence has this obsession with Elvis, similar to, I guess, Tarantino at that time had an obsession with Elvis, as far as True Romance goes and everything, and just how he plays it. And even though, the first scene where he shows up, when he's talking to him, is when the whole thing about what he should do regarding going to confront Drexel, played by Gary Oldman, regarding Alabama and everything, and about you should just kill him and everything. And then the second time he shows up is near the end when Clarence goes to the bathroom, doing the whole meeting with the movie producer, and before everything pretty much goes to hell with the whole standoff and everybody just getting murdered, and everything. And that scene with them in the bathroom, and I always like, when he's talking to Clarence and everything, and then when he put his hand on his shoulder, it's like the way he just like puts his hand on the shoulder, it's like, and he snaps his finger and then he walks off, and just the look that's on Clarence's face. And like I said, the fact that you don't see Val in the movie, and this is during a time when, like I said, this is like at the height of his fame, the fact that he shows up in the movie and you don't get a clear vision of his face in the movie, it's just insane. And he's just one of those people that, that's in that movie of True Romance, that is like, this movie has probably one of the most insane name casts, of all time, just from the people that shows up in big and small roles, and Val Kilmer is a part of that film. Also in 93, he's in The Real McCoy with Kim Basinger, where they play robbers and everything like that. It's been a long time since I've seen The Real McCoy. This is during the time when Kim Basinger was like Kim Basinger and everything. And the fact that her and Val was together in this movie, it's a movie I haven't seen in a long time, and I don't think it's really, I don't think it's streaming anywhere. I have to check to see or whatever, but yeah, it's one of those movies. Like you don't get movies like this anymore, because I mean, she was a woman that was in prison. She's a known, robber and everything, and he plays her sidekick basically, and everything. It's, like I said, it's an interesting movie, and again, it's another movie that kind of gets lost in the shuffle to some degree of his career, because ironically he's in 3 movies in 1993. Like I say, he shows up in True Romance, The Real McCoy, and then the big movie of probably I would say his best performance of his career is also 1993, where he shows up in Tombstone of Doc Holliday alongside another insane cast of characters, and he's the standout of that. And just to think that in a movie that features Kurt Russell, Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton, Powers Booth, Michael Biehn, all these great character actors and everything that shows up in this, and everyone is great in their roles, but the one who is above everybody else is Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. I mean, there's a lot that has been said about his performance in this movie, and it is one of my all-time favorite performances. I remember when I was in high school, where we had to write a paper for history class, and all the teacher said was to write, a story, write about someone from history. They didn't say specifically, they just say anybody. You could write about anybody from history. And I was the only one who thought outside of the box, and I decided to write about Doc Holliday, the real Doc Holliday. But I mentioned about Val Kilmer's performance as Doc Holliday and everything, and because what he does with this movie, with this role, it was ironic about it too, is the fact that this was one of 2 movies that dealt with the Wyatt Earp and the shootout at the OK Corral and all of that, because you had this movie and then you had Kevin Costner's epic Wyatt Earp film, and you had Dennis Quaid play Doc Holliday. And if you ever watch Wyatt Earp movie and you watch Dennis Quaid performance, and then you watch Tombstone and you watch Val's performance, you get why Val gets the notoriety and the praise that he got for the role. And that's not to say that Dennis Quaid was not good as Doc Holliday. It's just that when you have Val Kilmer, who was great as Doc Holliday, it makes his good performance look mediocre in comparison, really. And the fact that Val was not nominated for an Academy Award, he was not nominated at all. I don't have a problem if, people who are nominated and they don't necessarily win for giving a great performance, but not to be nominated at all is still one of the biggest, misses when it comes to the Academy Award and like how it comes about for people being nominated for awards. And it's like, how did they miss the boat on that? Because 2 years earlier, he does not get nominated for Jim Morrison, which he was damn good in. And then 2 years later in Tombstone, he does not get nominated in either. And it's just, how did they miss the boat? Not once, but twice on Val Kilmer. And I've always felt like Val was very underrated. And for some reason, Hollywood had this thing against him, because those two performances alone, I think anybody else does those roles and is, I would say, not even as good as him in those performances would probably get nominated. So for him not to get nominated for the performances that he give in both films, it's just a head scratcher to me, and I've never understood why he was never nominated for either one, and especially why he was not nominated for Tombstone. It really didn't make no sense. And like I said, I actually watched Tombstone the other day again after his passing, and just watching him in that movie again, it's just like, dude was leaps and bounds. Like, he was just, people talk about when somebody, goes God mode or whatever in a role. He went there, and you don't really get, you still get really great performances now, but you don't get performances like this from actors, not just from actors like him, but just actors in general. You don't get, it's rare when you have performances that just transcend and just, even if you're not a fan of said movie, of this performance just because. I'm your Huckleberry, and everything like that. People, you say that, and Doc Holliday or Val Kilmer or something like that. People notice, and it's like, oh, have you ever seen Tombstone? No, I've never seen it, but I've seen memes about it and everything. People know about it. It's one of those performances of where it's a universal talked about, performance and everything. So ironically, he doesn't do anything in 94. As far as, I should say, have anything come out in 94. So 95, he has 3 films, and the first is a movie that I've never heard of called Wings of Courage. Don't know anything about this. And oh my god. So this movie, you have Val Kilmer's in it. It also stars Elizabeth McGovern, and Craig Schaefer. And that's why I say oh my god, because Craig Schaefer, if you listen to my podcast or anything like that, I have talked about Craig Schaefer before, and everything. I know there's an episode with me and Jeff from Jeff versus the World where we were talking about Craig Schaefer, and I brought up the fact that Brad Pitt pretty much stole Craig Schaefer's career, this whole thing, and I feel like that, and not stole it in the sense of like he beat him across the head and said, oh, I'm gonna have his career. But once upon a time, Craig Schaefer was, he was looked at as like this young, he was like next man up. He was this young, actor, Craig Schaefer, he was in these movies and everything. And then he happened to do a little movie with Brad Pitt called A River Runs Through It. And it's like people said, screw Craig Schaefer, because this Brad Pitt guy. And you look at Craig Schaefer's career before A River Runs Through It, and then you look at his career after, and it's like, ugh, like what the hell happened? And I'm like, well, Brad Pitt is what happened. And the fact that here is where you have Val Kilmer in a movie with Craig Sherford, so that's kind of why I went, oh my god, which is kind of interesting. That's my little Craig Schaefer rant for a second. Like I said, I never heard of this movie. Don't even really know anything about it or whatever. But the next movie he has in that he has come out in 95 is Batman Forever. So he was Batman. He was he replaced Michael Keaton as Batman in Batman Forever and everything. I don't have a problem with Val's performance as Batman, as Bruce Wayne. I think he's good in it. I don't think he gets remembered for that movie. I think Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face and Jim Carrey as the Riddler kind of overshadows him to a degree, because it's kind of interesting. I mean, Michael Keaton in Batman 89, yeah, you have Jack Nicholson, but you remember Michael Keaton as, you know, he's not forgotten in that one. Or in Batman Returns, you have Danny DeVito as the Penguin, Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, but you don't forget about Michael Keaton either. Hell, you even remember Christopher Walken, you know, as Matt Shrek and everything in there. You don't forget, but you don't forget about Michael Keaton. But for me, at least, you kind of forget about Val's Batman in comparison to Madman Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, Harvey Two-Face, and Jim Carrey's over the top, just wilding out as the Riddler, and the two of them together and everything. You kind of forget about Val. He kind of gets lost in the shuffle in that movie. It does, and like I said, that's just my opinion of it and everything. But I think he does a good job as Batman. And I think when you talk about everyone that's played Batman, I think people, they remember him fondly as Batman. I mean, he didn't have a problem with him as, he doesn't get remembered the same way George Clooney gets remembered as Batman, right? And I mean, it was cool that he got to play, you know, the Dark Knight basically, and everything. But yeah, he kind of gets a little bit overshadowed, and it's kind of interesting the fact that he has been he was Jim Morrison in The Doors. He was Doc Holliday in Tombstone, where he just shines above the rest. But in a way, in Batman Forever, he kind of gets outshined, and is interesting in that regard. And the reason why I say that is because the other movie, the last movie he's in from 1995, and I'm talking about Michael Mann's Heat, which of course, you know, you get Al Pacino, De Niro together, and then you have another insane cast of characters. I mean, you have John Voight is in it, Tom Sizemore, Ashley Judd, Michael T. Williamson, a young Natalie Portman, Wes Studi, Ted Levine, all these guys, Dennis Haysbert, all these guys and these actresses that are in this movie. And then you have Val Kilmer, who is the third lead in this movie. And just how he doesn't outshine De Niro or Pacino, but there's a reason why he's the third lead of the movie. You actually go on a journey with his character, and the fact that he's the only one of Neil's crew that comes out alive at the end. And I actually watched Heat again recently too. And actually, this was before he passed away. I was watching Heat, and I was thinking about it when the whole shootout scene happens. That I was thinking to myself, like, it's interesting. Him getting shot actually saved his life, and it's kind of weird when you think about it. But no, if you pay attention, I mean, when he gets shot during the shootout, it causes De Niro, Neil McCauley, to have to go and save him, and they have to veer off and go to this, you know, grocery store. And then they take their car and they get out of there. That's how they escape. Tom Sizemore ended up getting murdered. Dennis Haysbert character already got murdered because he was the wheelman. So they gone. So if he doesn't get shot and they continuously going down that street in that shootout, they probably don't make it out of there, and they all probably get killed right there. So him getting shot actually, like I say, saves his life. in a way, because he ends up disappearing, and he, you know, the only thing is that he gets out alive, but he loses his family. He loses Ashley Judd. He loses his son, and he just has to leave and possibly to never see them again. Now, I like to believe that I think maybe a few years probably go by, and then he finds her and their son, you know, or something like that. I like to believe that, but just with how the movie ends, is that he gets out, you know, without being captured, without getting murdered, and everything, but he loses the one thing that he said that he always wanted, even though he didn't act like it, because his character of Chris has a gambling problem and everything, and is one of the reasons why him and Ashley Judd character are always at odds and everything, because it's like you don't really have to be doing this and everything, but you're doing this because you're doing these bank jobs to feed your gambling habit. That's your problem. You gamble, and I like to think that he finally stopped gambling, you know, when he leaves. I don't think he went and, you know, the money that he got away with, I don't think he went and say, oh, let me put like all this down on a Tyson fight or something or whatever, and anything like that. But yeah, I like to believe that it changed his life in a positive way, and everything. But yeah, he has a few standout scenes in that movie. I mean, that scene with him and De Niro, where after Chris and Ashley Judd character, they have this blow up and everything, and he actually went to Neil's place, and Neil comes in, and the fact that he's down. Okay, this is how down bad he was. He was sleeping on the floor with a freaking pillow, and he wakes up, he looking crazy, like, oh, what, huh? And Neil, he doesn't really say like a whole lot. He just say, what the hell happened to you and everything. And just this him talking about how Charlene basically is, you know, the sun rises with her, and he talks about like, this woman means everything to me, but I'm blowing it. And Neil pretty much is like, man, you know what, like he kind of deflects it in a way of where, like, basically you need to just, you know, cut ties with that. See, that's your problem. You got a family and everything. You know, you just need to know how to, you know, 30 seconds of flat, when you feel the heat coming around the corner, just get out and everything. That's Neil's way, because that's where Neil is. But it's like, no, because every family man, he's the only one that doesn't have a family. And the fact that in the end, Chris has to leave. But I like to believe that Chris does find Charlene and their son, you know, years later or whatever. I like to believe that. I don't know. Maybe I'm a big softy or something. I don't know. But yeah, so those are the three movies he does in 95. 1996, we get The Island of Dr. Moreau. And boy, that movie is rough. In a lot of ways, and not just looking at Marlon Brando in that movie, but that movie is just a rough movie, and it's like, like what is this? And I think the only, I mean, this movie is one of those, it's so bad it's bad. It's not so bad it's good. It is not. It's not a good movie. But I will say, watching, there's a particular scene where Val Kilmer's character is doing his impression of Marlon Brando. And yeah, I mean, if they would have did a biopic about Marlon Brando, I say in the late 90s, early 2000s, Val Kilmer could have played Marlon Brando. I would just say that. I know we got this movie that's with Billy Zane playing Marlon Brando, and I'm pretty sure it's great because Billy Zane is great as well. I'll put him in the same class as Val Kilmer when it comes to just doing great, you know, being great actors. Doesn't matter if they're in a good movie or a bad movie, they are great in it. And that's the thing about this movie. This movie is not great, The Island of Dr. Moreau. Don't get it twisted. Good movie. It is a terrible movie. But Val Kilmer is great in it. Even though it doesn't make any damn sense, but he's great in it. And the movie is like one of those horror stories when it comes to like on set and stuff like that. But Val is great in it. another movie he did in 1996, a movie called Dead Girl. Don't know anything about that. Yeah, I never really even heard of this movie. But yeah, he was in that in 96. Also in 96, because he did 3 movies in 96 again. He ends 96 with The Ghost in the Darkness. That's him and Michael Douglas, where they're in, I believe it's Africa, where they are 2 hunters and they're hunting these lions. And it's been a long time since I've seen The Ghost in the Darkness. I know because I saw it when I was a kid, and I know that I guess I didn't really understand too much about it at the time. I thought it was going to be one thing, and then when I watched it, it was like something completely different. So me as a 10-year-old kid watching it, it's like, this isn't really this wasn't really for me. But I have had a few conversations with people online about it, and like, no, Ghost in Darkness is a good movie. So I think I will revisit this one with more adult eyes, opposed to, going into it as a child watching it, and everything, and give it another chance or whatever. Because I mean, Michael Douglas, Val Kilmer, can't really go too wrong with those two. 1997, we get The Saint, and here where Val gets to just show off in a way of where he can play all of these different characters within a main character. I know how we talk about Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, where he does a character inside of a character inside of another character type thing, but the fact that in The Saint you have Val Kilmer, who plays the character of Simon, who goes around and he's a thief, but he uses the covers and uses the names of different saints and all these different characters that he creates and everything. One thing I enjoy about The Saint is the fact that all of those characters that he pretends to be, they could easily have been like the main characters of others of their own story, and those characters, they feel like they're real people. They don't just feel like fractions of a character that he's made up. These feel like, no, these, like, there's like history and a story behind all these characters, where it feels like these people could easily, been the main characters or whatever, or like his main alter egos, just as his own thing throughout the movie. And I don't know too many other actors that probably could have did that and make you feel like, no, this like, yeah, I want to see more about this character that he's playing, and just how different all of those characters are, and the different accents that he puts on. It's like Val was allowed to just show all of his range in one movie, and I don't think The Saint gets talked about enough. The Saint was one of those movies when I was growing up as a kid that I enjoyed a lot, and I remember owning it on VHS, which is interesting because I actually owned Heat. I own Heat, Batman Forever, Tombstone, The Ghost in the Darkness, The Saint. I had all those on VHS back in the day when I was a kid. I owned all those movies, and everything. Like I say, even though I didn't care for The Ghost in the Darkness that much as a kid, but I still watched it. The Saint, I just had fun with, and everything. And I remember I would try to do like some of the accents that he was doing or putting on as the different characters from The Saint, or even when he was Doc Holliday. I'd be walking around, I'm your Huckleberry and everything. All the strain was more than he could bear, and I just bust out saying crap like that and everything, because it was just fun just to kind of watch him perform as and everything. And like I say, you just don't get actors like Val Kilmer anymore. So moving on, so 1998 he does The Prince of Egypt. I don't think I've ever watched it. No, I've never watched The Prince of Egypt. 1999 he does At First Sight. That's with him and Mira Sorvino, where he plays a blind man who gets an operation and he's able to see. It's not a bad movie. It's one of those movies that kind of came out in the late 90s, kind of almost similar to like Michael with John Travolta. I'm trying to think of it's another one also that came out around it. Oh, City of Angels with Nicolas Cage. Even though they play angels in those movies, but it's still this whole thing of where man, woman kind of meet, fall in love, and there's something that's kind of in between. That's kind of an issue that's in between that gets resolved to a degree, but yeah, I mean, he's good in it. I mean, it's not a movie that I revisit a lot of his, but I mean, if you like, movies like that, like little romance movies or whatever, that where someone has a disability or something, yeah, at first sight, it's not a bad movie. And I don't know why I made that comparison of Michael and City of Angels, but I only say that because of how the main character meets the main love interest in a unconventional circumstances and how they form their relationship. So that's where I'm making that comparison with those movies with At First Sight. Even though Michael and City of Angels are more in common with the fact of both of them playing angels, but totally different types of angels. But anyway, also in '99 he does Joe the King, which I never watched either. So then we move into 2000. He does a movie called Pollock, which I never watched. But I did see his other movie from the year 2000 called Red Planet. And I think that is a underrated sci-fi film and is interesting when that movie gets brought up or anything, because ironically, a lot of stuff like that goes on in this movie is very relevant to right now. I mean, the whole thing about we want to go to freaking Mars, check. You experience some wildness that goes on in space. I mean, with astronauts being stranded, right? Check. The whole thing about AI, because the AI in this becomes the villain, and everything. Even though another character in the movie becomes the villain also, but the main villain is the AI technology that becomes the villain. And the fact that in another movie, the character of Gallagher that Val Kilmer plays probably would get killed off halfway through the movie is actually the main character of this movie, and you actually get him reunited with Tom Sizemore in this. You have Benjamin Bratt also in it, and you have Carrie-Anne Moss, she's in it, but it just kind of sucks that her and Val, they don't have a lot of, matter of fact, she doesn't have a lot of screen time with the main characters outside of when they're all on the spaceship together, because once they go down to the Red Planet, and everything, all of her scenes is her in space. And I always feel like, well, probably because she was filming or probably had finished, she probably, I don't know which came first. Maybe she was doing this movie and she had to go do The Matrix that came out in '99. But I always kind of feel like The Matrix had a role in the fact of why she is not really with the main cast as much and everything. And the fact that when the movie first starts, her and Gallagher do not get along, because she looks at him like, oh, you just a space janitor, because that's what he's looked at as, the janitor of the ship and everything. And he just kind of like this surfer that's in space or whatever. But when things get crazy, and after Terrence Stamp character, spoiler alert, anyone's never seen it, after his character dies, it's like that's when Gallagher kind of starts to step up more, and through circumstances he becomes the last man standing that has to face Amy, and it's just like a race to, is he going to survive or is he not going to survive to reunite with Bowman on the spaceship. And like I said, it's a movie that doesn't get talked about enough, but it is definitely it's one of my favorites of Kilmer's career. And I think it's one that probably should be watched a little bit more. And it was the better of the Mission to Mars movies, because you had the movie Mission to Mars that also came out, and it was not as good as this one in my opinion, because they came out in the same year. But this one was the better of the two movies. But unfortunately, because Mission to Mars came out first, I don't think people really want to see this movie based off of what happened with that movie. He doesn't have anything come out in 2001, but in 2002 he does The Salton Sea, which another one that was recommended to me, because I never watched The Salton Sea, but like I said, I was having conversations with people online about Val Kilmer films and stuff like this, and this was one that came up as far as one that I should watch. So I'm definitely gonna try to find that one and watch that one as well, because I've heard it was good, but I never watched it myself. And everything. Also in 2002 does a movie called Hard Cash, because around this time is where Val he's still doing, theater movies that's playing at the theater, but also he starts doing a lot of indie movies that go direct to video. He started doing a lot of that stuff, so he kind of starts to fade away from like the main Hollywood stuff and more lean into more the indie stuff. I never understood why that happened. I never looked too deep into why that happened, but he kind of does. So a lot of these movies that starts to appear like in 2000 or whatever is more so going to be direct to video stuff, with the occasional big budget movie that pops up in here and there. So like I said, 2002 he does Cash. 2003 he does a movie called Masked and Anonymous. Also in 2003 he does The Missing, with Kate Blanchett, Tommy Lee Jones, Evan Rachel Wood. He's in that, directed by Ron Howard and everything. I never really watched The Missing. I don't know, even though it's a Western, which I like Westerns and everything, but I never really cared to watch it because I like the main characters, like the main cast members in this. I'm a fan of there, but I just never I've always seen it, but I've never watched it or anything. But also in 1993 he does Wonderland, where he plays John Holmes, and it's the whole thing about the mystery surrounding the Wonderland murders and John Holmes' involvement. And this might be one of his, I would actually say this is probably one of his top 5 best roles from me, at least, where he plays John Holmes and he's kind of running around trying to stay out of going to prison or getting killed for his involvement in what happened in the Wonderland murders, which even the real life story of that is very wild. There's actually a documentary about it, which I started watching the documentary a while back, but I didn't finish it. I think I watched it's either 3 or 4 episodes, and I think I watched the first 2, so I need to go back and finish it at least. But just the whole thing surrounding how that whole thing went down and John Holmes' involvement in that is kind of insane, and everything. But Val Kilmer's performance in that movie is great. And the cast, I mean, it has a dope cast. I mean, you got Lisa Kudrow, Kate Bosworth, Christina Applegate, Carrie Fisher, Dylan McDermott is in it. I think Josh Lucas is also in it. I mean, it has a really good cast, in it and everything. But it was one of those kind of under the radar indie movies that I think kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. But like I say, he is very good in the movie, and everything. Also in 2003, he does a movie called Blind Horizon. Never seen it. 2004, he does Spartan. That's another one that I think kind of flies under the radar. As far as Val Kilmer performances, it was him, Derek Luke, William H. Macy, is in it also. I've seen bits and pieces. I've never actually seen the whole movie, so it's another one I probably have to go back and rewatch and everything. Also 2004, he does a movie called Stateside. Don't know anything about that one. Mindhunters also is in 2004. That movie does not get, I mean, it gets talked about, but it's very underrated as far as the like psychological thriller. And the fact that he's in it along with Christian Slater, LL Cool J, Clifton Collins Jr. He's in it also. Johnny Lee Miller. Pretty much these people, they FBI trainees, and they get taken to this island and they get put in a simulation, and boy, they end up fighting for their freaking life in it and everything. But it's a very good underrated movie. It's been a long time since I watched it, but I still remember it and everything. It's probably, I think it's definitely gonna be one I'm gonna revisit as I'm going through some of these Val Kilmer rewatches that I'm doing. 2004 also, he shows up in a movie called George and the Dragon. Don't know anything about that. He does an episode of Entourage in 2004. He's in Alexander, the movie about Alexander the Great, where he plays Alexander's father and everything. He's not in it a lot, but I mean, he's in it. 2005, he pairs up with Robert Downey Jr. in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is kind of interesting. The fact that both of these guys were they started out as 80s actors, and this is the first time that they crossed paths. And ironically, this is Val Kilmer at this point in 2005. He's kind of somewhat on the down slope of the height of his fame, and well, I say popularity when it comes to movies. And this is just a few years from where Robert Downey Jr. re-kicks his career, because around this time, you know, Downey was not looked at as he was looked at as more of a liability, more so than anything, because of all the drug issues that he had. But Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a great movie. It's a fun movie. Him and Downey, they play off each other very well, and I feel like they could have easily switched roles, and I think the movie would still have been just as good, because both of them are really good actors and probably could have played each other's part in the movie. Kind of how I feel about Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Heat. Like, they could have flipped roles, and I don't think the movie would be that much different. And that's kind of how I feel about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and everything. 2006 also, he does 10th and Wolf. I think this is where we start to get more to the direct video part of his career. He's in a movie called Played, Moscow Zero, Summer Love. Then he's in Deja Vu. He shows up in Deja Vu. I mean, Tony Scott, you know, his first like really big movie was a Tony Scott film back in the day with Top Gun. So him showing up basically 20 years later, actually, in 2006 in Deja Vu. He's in there with Denzel Washington. Deja Vu is a very good movie. Val Kilmer, he's in it. And it's just one of those movies like, oh, hey, look, it's Val. Val's in a big movie again, right? And everything. Just kind of unfortunate that I think anybody could have played the character that he plays in the movie. His character's not like memorable like that in the movie. And especially with how the movie is told, you don't give a lot to side characters that's not Denzel, because the movie is really much all about Denzel trying to figure out, is this woman alive or is she dead? You know, and having to do some wonky time travel thing. You know, in a way, this is Denzel's Tenet in a way. Before John David did it. If you know what I mean by that. Also in 2006, he does the 10 Commandments. He plays Moses. Didn't watch it. He did an episode of Numbers on TV in 2007. He shows up in the Western epic Comanche Moon, which was a Lonesome Dove story. Like I say, I'm gonna kind of run through a lot of these now, because this is where we really get to him in his full direct-to-video era of his career. Conspiracy, Delgo, Columbus Day. He shows up in The Love Guru. Why was he in The Love Guru? Why was anybody in The Love Guru? Anyway, Felon in 2008. Was it 13? The Conspiracy. Yeah, he, like I say, so he's starting to just be in a lot of direct-to-video. 2009, he shows up in Bad Lieutenant, Port of New Orleans with Nicolas Cage, and he's not in it a lot, because again, that story is not doesn't really give a lot of room for side characters. It's all about the Bad Lieutenant of Nicolas Cage, but he could have easily played the Bad Lieutenant in that movie. I mean, Nicolas Cage is wild and in that movie, and I always say that is Nicolas Cage as the Joker in that movie. If you ever seen it, I think you might get what I mean by that. Let's see. Also in 2009, he's in Hardwired with Cuba Gooding Jr. He does a movie called Double Identity. Bloodworth. He shows up in MacGruber. which he plays. I think he plays the villain, because I never watched MacGruber, but I think he's the villain in it. Yeah. Then in 2011, he shows up in Kill the Irishman, another movie that doesn't get talked about enough, and everything. Ray Stevenson, who also recently passed away, but that movie has a great cast. Also, Christopher Walken, Vincent D'Onofrio is in it also, and everything. Val Kilmer's in it, right? Yeah, like I say, so coming up to more current, he, like I say, he was doing a lot of like indie stuff, but then he started the whole thing about him, getting, going to bad health. The whole thing about the throat cancer thing started to happen, and a movie that I watched, and I was not happy about seeing him in this movie. First of all, the movie's not really all that good, even though it has a really good cast, but I feel like he was wasted in that movie, and I'm talking about The Snowman. This is during a time when he was really suffering with the whole throat cancer, and that was not a movie that he even should have been in. The movie, like I said, the movie's not good. Michael Fassbender, like I said, it has a good cast, Michael Fassbender and everything, but his like, why was he in this movie? And in the scenes that you even get of him is just like, huh? Like, what is this? But yeah, like I say, around that time, because this is 2017, like I say, he was not at his best here, but he still was showing up, in movies and things like that. And then in 2022, he shows up in Top Gun Maverick. And when you find out that Tom Cruise actually had to fight in order to get him in the movie, and it is one of the, I would say, probably one of the best emotional scenes in the movie, because up until Iceman shows up, you're just seeing Maverick texting with him and everything, but you don't actually see him until Maverick finally goes to the house, and you see him, and seeing Val as Iceman, but it's more so seeing Val giving his last performance, because this is the last movie that he made, and the emotion that you get from, not just from the scene, but just from seeing Val, and he gives this performance, and the fact that at that time his voice was gone, so what you hear of his voice in the movie is something that they did with AI and everything like that, but it's just the performance that he gives. It's a last, it's his final curtain call, basically, and you kind of get basically what made Val Kilmer a really good actor, all wrapped up in that role, and just how he make you feel emotionally. And that was one of the things about him throughout his career in movies, and a lot of his movies, he could make you feel emotion for his character. He had a vulnerability about him that I don't think gets talked about enough when you talk about him as an actor, because I would say probably all of his big roles, and I'm talking about The Doors, Tombstone, Heat, all those, like those movies and everything, he makes you feel for his characters in different ways, and it's that vulnerability thing that he was able to do, and I think that's what made him a great actor, and I think that's why a lot of people enjoyed watching his movies, because you could feel vulnerability for him in ways that a lot of those characters, if they were played by other people, I don't think the other actors would make you feel sympathy in a way for those particular roles and everything. So yeah, that's Val Kilmer's career. Like I say, he's done a lot of really good movies, some not so great movies, and some movies that are very underrated and that should be talked about more and everything, and should be seen more. So yeah, that's how, just me talking about Val Kilmer, one of my favorite actors, and everything. And like I said, I just wanted to get on here and just kind of talk about his career, like, and what made him, like I said, I think one of the things that made him unique as an actor, like I said, was the fact that he could make you feel sympathy and like for his characters. And then in some, he was unpredictable, and everything. Like in The Saint, he's very unpredictable because you don't know. And in Red Planet, he should not be the hero in that movie, but he is through circumstance. But he becomes the hero of that movie. I know he did the documentary, and everything where he kind of was chronicling his life, and everything. And this is before Top Gun Maverick came out. He had started chronicling his life, and then they turned it into a documentary just to, kind of remember his life and everything like that, life and career. So I have not watched it because for some reason I didn't want to watch it because I know it's gonna make me sad and everything. Like I say, for me, because like I say, he was one of those actors that I grew up watching that I just always liked in a way, and I'm one of those type of people, like sometimes I don't want to see not sometimes, I don't want to see like people that I grew up watching. I don't want to see them necessarily at their lowest and everything. It's kind of the same thing how I felt about Patrick Swayze when he did The Beast, that TV series. I started watching it. I think I watched like the first episode, and then when it came for the next episode, I started watching it, and I remember I just turned it off. I was like, no, I can't watch this, because I didn't want to see Patrick Swayze like that. I didn't want to see he was suffering with his pancreatic cancer at the time as well, and it's like I don't want to see him like that. And it's kind of the same thing with Val. I didn't want to see him necessarily like that, but I know that documentary, it chronicles his career and everything, so I probably will give it a watch. And it's probably going to make me feel sad, but I'm still going to watch it because, like I said, I was such a huge fan of Val Kilmer's and everything, and everything like that. So I'm going to ask this question to you guys, the listeners. What's your favorite Val Kilmer's role? Not necessarily movie, but role. And everything, because, like I said, he's done a lot of movies, a lot of great movies, not so great movies, but at least for me, I have never seen really Val Kilmer give a bad performance in a movie. Never. Not saying that he probably hasn't, because there's a lot of his movies I did not see. But of all the ones that I have seen, I've never seen him bad in the movie. So yeah, I want to know what you guys are thinking. So I'm gonna ask that question probably on X, probably on Instagram also. So you can either, and then also too, the email is available as well. You can hit me up on, you can email me at jmovietalk@gmail.com. Give your, like, what do you feel is your favorite Val Kilmer role? Also, maybe if you have like what some of your favorite movies of his are and everything, and I'll definitely read them on the show. I'll give you a shout out and things like that. Again, I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode. I know I kind of went through his career and everything, and didn't just focus on one particular thing, because it's more about just remembering the man, and I just want to get on the microphone and just kind of remember the actor that I liked and everything, and liked his movies and stuff, and just want to talk about him and everything. Next episode, which will be episode 331, I will be getting back to doing a review, and I will be reviewing Critters 2 because of the fact that we have a holiday coming up, Easter, and Critters 2 is actually a Easter movie. So that's why I will be reviewing Critters 2 for episode 331. So if you have any thoughts about Critters 2, you can hit me up and let me know, like, how do you feel about that movie, how you feel about that franchise and everything, and I'll definitely shout you out on the next episode as well. Of course, you can follow me on social media, whether it's on X at my personal page, The J Giles, or the movie page, J Movie Talk. Also on Instagram at JMT Podcast. Also, I'm over on TikTok as well, since TikTok is still around, right? We're still for another 75 days. TikTok is around here in the United States, right? They extended it another 75 days, right? So you can follow me on TikTok. You can follow the movie account, where's J Movie Talk, or you can follow my personal page, the J Giles. I keep it simple when it comes to finding me on social media, right? And everything. You can find me over there. Of course, you can find all of the Movie Talk episodes, a part of the TV Zone Podcast Network, wherever you listen to your podcast at. You can just type in TV Zone Podcast and it'll come up, and you find all the Movie Talk episodes. But also, I am now on YouTube as well, so you can find J Movie Talk over on YouTube. I've kind of been playing around as far as getting reacclimated to how YouTube is, because it's been a very long time since I posted anything on YouTube, so I'm just getting more familiar with how things work on YouTube again. I am posting full episodes on YouTube, as well as doing little snippets of episodes and shorts of things like that from the episodes. I myself haven't started filming live, like me on camera. I haven't started doing that just yet, but I do plan on at some point actually, getting back on camera so people can see my face or whatever, and things like that. So I'll be doing that and everything. So you can definitely follow me over on YouTube as well. Support, follow, like, subscribe, comment, and things like that on the full episodes, or also on the shorts and the clips from the episodes that I post, where I just kind of take little parts from each episode and post them as its own singular thing, and everything like that. Thank you guys again for listening, and I will be back for episode 331, where I will be reviewing the creature feature Critters 2. Until next time, peace.